The sun's magnetic arches may actually be just an optical illusion. What does this mean? Hi there, I'm Jeff Allen, and that's the latest at spacechatter.com. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We would sure appreciate that. These findings come from a team of researchers led by physicist Anna Malanushenko. They say that some coronal loops from the sun could be optical illusions that are, quote, created by folds or wrinkles in much larger sheets of solar material that the authors call coronal veils. Now, we'll have a model here in a little bit that shows you what this is, but there's some fascinating pictures and video here from the sun. Okay, for those of you taking notes, this picture here is of coronal loops on the sun captured in ultraviolet light using the 171 angstrom channel of the Atmospheric Imaging Assembly, or AIA instrument on NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory. Very cool. Ooh, and this is an AIA picture that shows the Earth at scale in the lower right-hand corner. That is crazy. But you can see the loops right there. The discovery may place doubt on how scientists view coronal loops. Initially, they saw the coronal loops as magnetic tubes formed by the sun's magnetic field lines. They called this the garden hose model. Ooh, I have one of those. According to NASA, there was no reason to doubt the model at first. What scientists see is brighter solar material flowing through what looks like invisible tubes, kind of like water through a garden hose. And NASA explains it this way. Just as Earth's air gets thinner at higher altitudes, the sun's bright plasma, or electrically charged gas, gets thinner with height. That's why it grows dimmer with height. And if coronal loops truly are tubes of plasma, so should they. But many loops maintain a consistent brightness with no obvious explanation. Since NASA tossed cold water on the garden hose theory, see what I did there? Malanushenko began to question observations since the sun's corona is optically thin or translucent, like smoke or fog. The initial thought was that the coronal loops should balloon as they move away from the sun since they trace the sun's magnetic field. Malanushenko said, quote, but they don't get nearly as wide as we think they should. Most of them stay too thin, and we don't understand why. Malanushenko simulated the process of observing coronal loops with a computer and repurposed a 3D simulation of the sun that was originally used to study flares. She then wrote a program to observe it. The computer program took 2D images of the coronal loops, and those snapshots revealed bright arcs, artificial coronal loops on a simulated sun. Because Malanushenko could pause the simulated sun, she found something very different from the garden hose-like tubes. She said, quote, I don't have words to describe it because this is not like anything that we see on Earth. I want to say this formation looks like clouds or smoke or maybe a veil or curtains that are wrinkled. Now, despite this new evidence, researchers say that not all coronal loops are optical illusions. Malanushenko says that even in her simulation, there were many times where garden hose-like structures did form. In other words, basically NASA says these veils do exist, but still, the garden hose theory also holds water. Keeping up with the theme there. In this way less flashy image, we can get a much better understanding of the two theories. This simplified model compares the garden hose model of coronal loops on the left to the coronal veil model on the right. In both images, the ball represents the sun, and you want to focus on the shadow that is cast. This looks like one of those art projects I did in school, but it does serve a purpose here. The shadow represents the image, so you've got to look at the shadow of the sun that would be observed by telescopes. On the left, individual strands or tubes connect one part of the sun's surface to another. The shadow reveals obvious loop-like structures. On the right, a more complicated veil or translucent sheet connects one part of the sun's surface to another. But, and here's the big but, the shadow still creates the impression of loop-like strands in some places, and they resemble those created by the garden hose model. You can check out way more info on this and other fascinating discoveries on all things outer space by clicking the link in the description below and head over to spacechatter.com.